Okay, so I have my armature ready. You can see this is, let me back this up. This is an elephant. You can see his head, both of his ears, okay, his body, and then his legs. Okay, and so what I want to do is I have to start filling this up and turning this like empty kind of 3D form into something that's solid. Okay, so we're going to use some newspaper, and the newspaper comes all folded up, right? And so you're going to have to open this up and pull the pieces apart, because you can't crumple like a stack of newspaper very tight. Okay, you can see how you've got all this gap because you can't squish it enough. Okay, the newspaper is too strong. And so what you need to do is open this up so you have like one piece. Okay, so this is just one layer of newspaper, and so with this you can crumple this much tighter, and it's going to be a lot more dense, okay, than it would be if you were crumpling like that whole entire sheet. Okay, so this is where you're going to start, and you can start filling those things that are 3D, okay, and it's very possible that they would spill out a little bit, so if they do, and you can't get them to stay, if you put a piece of tape over the top of this, okay, tape is going to solve your problem with that. So you want to fill that up. So I'm going to fill this part up and fill his body up, and it should be solid. I would have some people who they would crumple one, like a half sheet up like this, and then they stick it in the middle and they say, this is enough. Okay, I still see holes like where I can like poke through this, and so this is not solid. Okay, this you can put so much more paper in. Okay, so you want to do that. You want to separate this and continue to add newspaper, okay, into these forms. Okay, into the places that are three-dimensional and open like that. Okay, so squish them in. Make sure they're solid. You can see how, at least for me, this part stays pretty well. I put like 3 sheets in here. Okay, now it's not super smooth, okay, and that's something that we will figure out later and learn how to smooth the surface of this out. But again, if it doesn't want to stay, put a piece of tape on there to kind of help guide where you want it to be. Okay, so I've got his head and his body. Okay, so I'm going to keep going. So now I have his legs, his trunk, and his ears. And then I need some type of tail for him on the back. And so what you can do, I'm going to show you a couple of different techniques with this. And you'll probably need a pair of scissors. Let me grab that. Okay, so if I was looking at his legs and even his trunk, you think about these being cylindrical, and so I'm going to do that with my newspaper. This would be kind of hard to, well, it'd be hard to make these out of wire where they would be hollow, and then it would be hard to like stuff that and fill it up. And so I think what's best for this is to figure out how long you want the legs to be. So if I'm looking, like these would be 4, let me double check with another one. Yeah, so I'm going to make these 4 inches, and I'm too big. Let's look and see. I'm going to go ahead and mark like 8 so I can fold it in half and then roll it. Okay, so fold this in half. I'm going to put a piece of tape just to kind of keep this together. And then I'm going to make a cylinder with this, and so I'm just going to roll this up. And I'm going to get, at least for him, however big I want this to be, cut that off and then tape it together. Right? And if you wanted something to be where it was bigger on one side and smaller on the other, then you would need to roll at an angle, and by rolling at an angle, you would be able to get something that is tapered. Okay, so big on this side, small on this side. Okay, so it kind of depends on what you're doing. I guess my elephant's probably a little bit bigger on one side, but I'm going to address that differently. I'm going to make it a cylinder to begin with, and I'll show you how. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go with this is as big as I want this to be, and then I'll run a piece of tape down the side to kind of seal this area in. And then you can see that this is hollow, and you would be able to thread one of these through, and you would be able to use that for one of the legs. Okay, so that's a really easy way to get this on here. Again, you're just going to have to go little by little and look at all those details of that animal and get them on there, because it's not going to look real great just yet. Okay, but I can say that this leg looks better than this leg, right? Better than my wire. And so what's nice too is with my wire, I can bend it and it will stay wherever I've bent it. Okay, I can pull that wire and I can put it back. Okay, so that's one technique. So I'm going to address the rest of these and kind of look at this. His ears. Okay, so I can go ahead and start with, let's go ahead and everybody looking up at the front. So I'm going to go ahead and start with a flat piece of paper. This is just what I unfolded. And it is a couple of layers. You really don't want to do anything, just a single layer, because it's not going to be thick enough to hold up to the paper mache and how wet the paper mache is. So I'm going to start with a piece that looks like this. And tape is your best friend on, doing all of this stuff, making it stay. So you might even give yourself a couple of pieces so you can just pull them off your desk, because we are sharing these with the rest of our table. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this on just behind that ear to make sure that's going to stay. Okay, so I have this taped. This is if I like the shape of what I have the wire and I want to keep it this shape. And so now I can take this and I can fold this around the wire that I have. And you can see how this is going to start to take the shape of the wire underneath it. Okay, I'm even going to fold back that direction. So I started with a piece, like just a flat one behind it, and then folded it over all the way around. So now I have a piece that covers that ear, that makes that ear look better. Okay, makes this ear more solid, and fills in all that gap. Okay, so that would be another way to do that. The trunk, just like I talked about before, would be something where, get a little bit more tape, where you're twisting this at an angle. I don't know if sometimes you got to tape it just to keep it together so you can get started. But twisting this where you can roll and make something pointed. Okay, so I have something smaller down here, rolling at an angle to make something bigger, like up at the top. Okay, I would want to tape over all my layers. That's not a big deal. And then I can cut through and kind of figure out how long I want this trunk to be. And since there's that wire inside of it, then I can make his trunk, I mean, like curled where it's down. I can have it like upright. You know, you could put it to the side. You could do all kinds of things with how that trunk looks. Okay, so I have something that is bigger up here, smaller over here, and so now I can just kind of trim and decide where I see this going. Okay, so put this on his trunk, just thread this through, and then again we would tape and, whoops, I popped out the side. There we go. So now I've got this on here, and then you would be able to kind of bend this and change whatever shape you see his trunk, okay, turning into. I would need to tape it to the head. Okay, and make sure that it would stay. But you can see how this is starting to take shape and how this looks better than it did. Okay, where you've got that covered. Okay, last thing. So we might have some wings or fins or ears, horns, different things like that that are too small to actually put on there. And so what's kind of nice is to, so let's say you have a penguin wing that you need. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this into like a thick section. If I were to count this, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is 8 sheets. I fold it in half. I have 16. Okay, so this is a lot of newspaper. You don't want to underestimate like how thick this actually should be to make sure that it's going to be strong. But I'm going to go ahead and tape all the way around the outside of it. And then I can go ahead and cut this into whatever form I want this to be. So if I want this to be long and skinny, then I can go ahead and take this side and cut it. It's a good thing that this is taped or it'd probably all fall apart. So I can take these pieces and then tape over it. And then I can do the same thing on the other side, okay, where I can curve this into whatever form I feel like it needs to be. Now this is very two-dimensional right now. Okay, it's very flat. And the easy thing or the quick thing that you can do to change that is to cut the top of this off. Let's see, is it focus? Okay. One more section. Okay, so I have this all taped together. I can cut the top part of this off, and now I have this like pop out kind of form. Okay, I've got some people staring somewhere else. Okay, so this is the flat piece that I started with. This lets it pop open, so then you could take some newspaper and you would be able to take this piece and stuff this with some newspaper, and you'd be able to get a three-dimensional wing. And so you might not have it filled all the way up to the top, but this gives you more thickness to it. So then when you tape this to